Hey, you. Yeah, you. Talking to you. Take a deep breath. Relax now, because the teller is here for UFC 298. And UFC 298 is the first of 3 major pay-per-view events that are heading our way. So we got a lot of exciting fights on the horizon here. If you guys are looking to work with me for my official plays, do not hesitate to reach out to me, because you guys know I got some major targets for these 3 upcoming pay-per-view events. We got the UFC Featherweight Championship of the World on the line here. Alexander Volkanovski, one of the greatest fighters to ever do it. He's getting up there in age. He's coming off a devastating knockout loss to Islam Makhachev, as he did take that fight on short notice, stepping up in weight as well. But now he's got the young gun, Topuria, looking to take him out. All right, so Volkanovski has a lot to deal with here. I'm very excited for this fight. It's a somewhat of a top-heavy card. I'm digging the main event for sure. We got Robert Whittaker taking on Paulo Costa, Ian Gary taking on Geoff Neal. You guys know there's a little beef and a backstory to that fight, and we've all been just dying to see Ian Gary show face. So Cejudo versus Dvalishvili, Hernandez versus Roman Kopylov is an underrated fight. Kopylov takes that fight on short notice. I'm very excited for this card. I gotta tell you guys something. Check this out, all right? I gotta tell you guys something before we jump into the first fight. I'm gonna be doing an interview, most likely, okay? I've been actually talking to Joe Pyfer's dad or father, okay? Awkwardly enough, I know it's kind of out of left field, but Joe Pyfer's father has reached out to me. You guys know I did a little video, a little post, kind of talking about some personal things that was talked about by Joe Pyfer, and all of a sudden I'm in contacts with someone in regards to that situation and whatnot, and it looks like I'm going to be doing an interview with Joe Pyfer's father, and it's 100% him. It's not even a question. His name's Joe Pyfer Sr., and I probably will do that interview live here on the channel for those of you guys that want to check it out. He wants to talk about his side of the story, and for those of you guys that don't know, you know, I'm somebody, whether I agree with someone or not, and I don't know all the details, but whether or not I agree with somebody, I am somebody that supports free speech, and I'm someone that supports anybody being able to give their side to a story. I mean, it's up to us to make the call on who we agree with maybe afterwards, or who you think's telling the truth more so than the other person. But I think you should never shut down conversation. That's the type of person I am. So of course I was willing to oblige when I was reached out to potentially have an interview with Joe Pyfer Sr. So keep an eye on that. That could be this week or maybe the following week. I'll keep you updated with that story. Okay, guys? Please like this video. You guys know I'm hustling over here. And subscribe to the channel. Follow me on all my social media. It's scrolling below. Let's jump into the first fight.
Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
Kicking the card off, we head over to the women's flyweight division, where we have the number 15th ranked Andrea Lee taking on Miranda Maverick. Maverick still only 26 years old. And this is a girl that's been on a lot of people's radar for some time, right? She was a very highly touted prospect as she came into the UFC. People really respect her. Take a look at the betting lines that have been next to her name since she's been fighting in the UFC. She's had a couple mishaps, but again, just understand that she's just 26 years old, and she's by far not a final product, right? We'll see how she looks when she's 30 years old, and if she has the potential to make a run at the belt. You know, some of those mishaps that I was talking about, of course, was in her second to last fight where she came up short against Jasmine Jasudavicius. Of course, the Erin Blanchfield fight not too long ago, and the Macy Barber fight as well. Even though some people had her winning that fight, it obviously was a close fight still. And those were fights where people were surprised, especially the Blanchfield fight. That was the coming out party for Blanchfield. Miranda Maverick was the favorite in that fight, and people were really scratching their heads when that fight was all said and done. But understand that Erin Blanchfield is an absolute stud and potentially the best fighter on planet Earth at this respected weight. You have to take that into consideration. The Jasmine fight, that one I scratched my head a little bit more about. Jasmine's a good fighter, but if Miranda really is who we expect her to eventually be, I mean, she should have won that fight. Miranda Maverick has good kickboxing. She's a well-rounded fighter. She's physically strong. Throws a lot of kicks. She could play. She could do the man dance, as Sean Strickland says. She could play that game. She can go tit for tat with you, and she could win a lot of fights like that. And this is a fight where Andrea Lee is very herky-jerky. She's willing to throw down on the feet as well. She's underrated there. She'll have her opportunities to land a little bit from the outside. And if things get ugly and potentially we see Andrea Lee taking the back of Maverick or somehow getting on top of her, I think there is that type of potential. We've seen Lee do that to high-level fighters, right? She did it to Macy Barber. A lot of people thought she should have had that W over Macy Barber. In fact, I did. I thought that Andrea Lee beat Macy Barber not too long ago. And it feels like the UFC it feels that same way, where they're still giving her these respectable fights, even though she's on a 3-fight losing skid. Natalia Silva, absolute stud, this top prospect in the game. So that is what it is. People think that she defeated Macy Barber, and then Viviane Araujo fight. Viviane's a respected fighter. So just don't completely sleep on Andrea Lee here. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. Don't sleep on her. We saw Miranda Maverick on her back a little bit, or struggling in some of those grappling exchanges. I don't know. You never know. Maybe Andrea Lee gets some control time down there, or uses her jiu-jitsu. On the feet, she's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage as well. So she'll try to use that herky-jerky striking to score some points. With that all being said, I know I'm talking about Lee a lot. We'll get to the betting line. I'll explain why, because I'm not crazy about the line, but I do like Miranda Maverick to get the job done here. As I said, she's very young, 26 years old, so she's going to look better every time she steps in there. She's coming into this fight with some momentum, coming off that victory that she just had against Priscila Cachoeira, where she submitted her in the 3rd round, looked good there. And I think that she can come into this fight with some momentum, and she could use her kickboxing skills, closing the distance, to bloody up Andrea Lee. That's one thing I've noticed with Lee, and a lot of her fights, she gets touched up on the feet. She's prone to being tagged. She's very tough and she's very durable, but she gets hit, and it won't look good for the judges' scorecards when she's bloodied up and making those squinty faces, and she's marching forward, rubbing blood off her face with her gloves and whatnot, while Miranda Maverick is all dieseled up and she's floating around out there. So that's kind of what I see happening. But, take a look at the betting line. Miranda Maverick opened up as a -155 on my bookie. She's now -210. I think if you were to be targeting Miranda Maverick in this fight, I would have wanted to grab her 170 and down. Anything above that, it just kind of scares me a little bit. It's a women's flyweight fight. Miranda Maverick has dropped the ball recently in some of these types of matches. And also, if you take a look at the victories she's had in the octagon, it's been over some low-level competition as well. She doesn't really have a lot of big victories. We could just run through her resume real quick. Priscila Cachoeira, Shayna Young, Sabina Mazo. I'm not going crazy about really any of these victories. The Jillian Robertson one, that looks pretty good there. That's about it. She defeated Pearl Gonzalez back in Invicta. I do respect Pearl Gonzalez. She's over in the bare knuckle scene these days, but there's just not a lot of big victories there. So I do caution you guys a little bit, but I have Miranda Maverick winning a decision. So Val Woodburn gets another opportunity to step down in the octagon. Of course, his UFC debut didn't go the way that he wanted it to go, but just understand that he was taking a fight on short notice against the biggest prospect the game has ever seen in Bo Nickel. He was fighting up a weight class when you could potentially argue that he's even an undersized welterweight. I don't know. I'm a little interested to see how he looks at the stare downs against Oban Elliott. But he's a very stout dude. He got finished in the 1st round. If you guys remember, Bo Nickel knocked him out. And they just went to war from the moment the bell rung. And really, that was the best predicament that Val could have been in that matchup. Of course, things didn't go his way, but I think that's the type of fight he wanted. He wanted to hope that he could have clipped Bo Nickel, because the longer that fight would have progressed, Bo Nickel would have used his wrestling and would have dominated him down in the mat. So he did a smart thing there, engaging in a firefight, got caught, but did show that he is vulnerable on the feet. He's sloppy. He's an aggressive fighter that looks to knock you out, but he is vulnerable to being clipped in his own right. And I think Oban Elliott may really have some success in that department. Oban Elliott has shown me on tape that he's a more strategical striker. He's a more polished striker, fighting out of the southpaw stance. I like the kicks that he mixes up in his game. Should be a little bit more rangy here. He's shown some real toughness as well. You run the tape back on his Dana White's Contender Series fight that he just had, where he got the contract, and that was a fight that it was 1-1 going into the 3rd round. He really dug deep. There was moments in that fight where he took some damage, and he withstood it all against Kai Brito. Fighting over on the Cage Warrior scene for some time. He's been doing his thing. Now, there was one little fight that stuck out to me here. If you guys remember the Michal Figlak fight, that was a fight where Figlak was able to finish him up in the 3rd round. Remember now, Val is looking to do exactly that. Val is looking to touch him up, land a big shot, and get him out of there. All right. That's really how Val has had the majority of his success as a pro. Now, one thing that kind of concerns me also, take a look at this. So he had a lot of knockouts early on in his pro career, and it was against very low level competition. And then as he had a slight step up in competition, I'm not even really ecstatic about the level of competition in Luis Melo and Wesley Martins, but they were better fighters, and then you start to see him go to a decision, right? He wasn't able to land the mark with that chaotic type of style that he brings into the game, where he's just throwing power shots and trying to overwhelm his opposition. And I worry that if he is sloppy like I've seen, he's not going to be able to get Elliott out of there. Elliott's very tough, and then I expect Elliott just to kind of be a step ahead and kind of snipe him up a little bit. And I think there's potential for Elliott even to get that knockout on him. All right, so you have to take into consideration, right? So Val had that opportunity to fight in the UFC based on what happened with Bo Nickal's opponent falling out. The UFC needed someone to jump in. It was really like a last resort type of thing. And you have to kind of question, is Val Woodburn even a UFC caliber fighter? Because we don't know that right now. He's 7-1, hasn't defeated anybody. Watching him on tape, he's not really the most polished fighter. He's a guy that's, like I said, has just landed some power shots and has had some success there. But again, against fighters, some of these fighters he was knocking out. I mean, he barely touched them with shots. It really wasn't that good of a shot that he landed. And you've seen some of these fighters turning their backs already. I mean, these guys were very green, some of these fighters. Does have some power, though. I'm not saying he doesn't have power, but I'm not really that big of a believer in what I've seen from Val. I think Oban Elliott is a much more polished fighter from what I've seen. He still has a lot more to prove as well, but he's been in there with some decent competition, and he's shown he's legit. So I think Oban Elliott should get the better of this matchup here, as long as he doesn't get clipped with the big shot. His 2 losses were via KO. All right, so that's how Oban has lost his fights. And again, in that Dana White's Contender Series fight, he was touched up early on too. He was damaged in that fight. So those are kind of the red flags there. But I got to side with Oban Elliott. Val has to prove a little bit more to me. Now, as far as the betting line goes, my bookie, he opened up as a minus 300, went to 290, back to 300, 290, back to 300. Not any significant movement, but he's a 3-1 favorite, is Oban Elliott. I mean, this is an interesting fight it's an interesting line just because we need to see more from these fighters to really get a full understanding of who they are. All right, so we don't really know exactly who both these men are. Oban Elliott is the way to go, and I am going to say Oban Elliott actually gets an earlier finish on the feet. I have a feeling that Val is the type of guy that's going to look to go out on his shield. He's either going to look to kill or be killed, and I think that those wild shots don't land, and I could see Elliott maybe countering him with something nice and finishing him up there. I think this should be a firefight. That's the vibe I'm getting from this matchup here. So give me Oban Elliott via TKO. I wouldn't recommend so much. I'm not targeting Oban Elliott as a parlay leg personally. Maybe you're seeing what kind of line you can get on the unders and finish props in this fight. And if you're looking for some solid dog value, maybe you're looking towards Val's side. Maybe you think Val can land a big shot. Those are kind of the routes I'm going with this fight. I think this is going to be a firefight. I'm telling you guys. In the welterweight division, we got Josh Quinlan taking on Danny Barlow. This fight is marked for me. This is one of the most exciting fights in the card. First and foremost, I'm very high on Danny Barlow as a prospect. I think he has some serious potential, has a crazy wingspan for the division with that 80-inch reach for the welterweight division. His striking is silky smooth. It's nasty. Now, there are some question marks in regards to his game at this time. We'll talk about those here. Josh Quinlan's been an absolute fight finisher as well, and there's some question marks about him as well, right? If you remember, coming into the UFC, after getting that knockout on Dana White's Contender Series, he ended up failing a drug test, and it was like a legitimate failed drug test where he was taking some performance-enhancing drugs. From what I remember reading up on that, he still ends up coming in, making his UFC debut and getting a first-round knockout. If you guys remember, we targeted that as an official play on the money line and the knockout prop. So he came through for us, looked very good. Didn't seem that whatever performance-enhancing drugs he was taking really had that much of effect, not taking them anymore. But then against Trey Waters, I was not impressed with what I saw. I know Trey Waters is an underrated up-and-comer as well, but Trey Waters doubled him up on strikes, was in complete control of that fight. Quinlan, a guy that really looks to land those power shots, and I think that if he doesn't land those power shots, he can get in trouble in fights that play out a little bit longer. I could see him getting touched up by a lot of fighters in the division that have that striking in their back pocket, and that's exactly what Danny Barlow has. Danny Barlow, forget about the fact that he's an absolute knockout artist, right? His left hand is devastating. If he's going to knock so many guys out in the octagon, I'm telling you guys that right now. But as good as his boxing is, he's not just a boxer, man. He throws nice kicks as well. He's very light on his feet. He's a legit striker. He's a true athlete. And again, I think that he's one of the real prospects you got to keep an eye on. Okay, I have him marked as one of my top up and comers in the game right now. Still has a lot to prove, though. The question marks we have in regards to Danny Barlow is the fact that he just has 7 pro fights still. And you take a look at the level of competition, it's been very low. Okay, it's been a very low level competition so far. The most respectable win was that W that he just had against Raheem Forrest, his fellow statesman, right? Fighting out of Tennessee. I respect Raheem Forrest's game, but that was a fight that only lasted about a minute, and they were just slugging it out in the feet, and eventually Forrest was clipped. So what I worry about in regards to Barlow's game is if he fights a fighter that's crafty and lets the fight prolong to the later rounds, I worry that maybe he shows some holes in his grappling or his cardio, right? We've been seeing that. We've always been seeing that, right? Some of these top up-and-comers, the fights get dragged to the later rounds and they just don't have that experience. And Josh Quinlan, I know he only has 8 pro fights, but he's been around for a while. He's been training for a while. He's decent. He's a decently crafty guy. And that's what I would worry about. Maybe Josh Quinlan can kind of take him to the deep waters, use some grappling. The other X factor, of course, is Danny Barlow. As nasty of a striker he is, he does keeps his hands low at times, which works for him, right? It helps with that speed, and he does get his hands up there quickly to defend usually. But when his hands are low like that, and if he's looking to land that big shot, Quinlan can counter you with the big shot and put you out. Let's not forget to talk about the power that Quinlan possesses. He's a knockout artist himself. It's the fight game, 4-ounce gloves. Quinlan can starch him as well. All right. So this is what we're talking about in regards to this fight. I expect this fight to be a very fun one. I think they're going to duke it out on the feet early on. It should be fun. And I'm leaning that Danny Barlow gets a KO here in his UFC debut, man. Like I said, I'm high on him. I love the jab that he possesses too. I think he could also, use that crazy reach to jab and set up the big shots as the fight goes on too. But he can kind of dictate the pace on the feet with that crazy reach advantage and that nice, stiff, crisp jab. All right, so I would like to see that from him. In fact, as Quinlan's kind of headhunting and looking for those power shots, I want to see Barlow throwing some nice straight shots from the outside, setting things up. All right, so yes, I'm taking Barlow to get a TKO finish early on in the fight, first or second round type of finish there. Now, he opened up as a -220 favorite on my bookie. Action's going the other way, where he's now a -200 and was for a brief point in time a -190 favorite. So, I understand why that line's trending that way. It's just because there's question marks like we talked about. People need to see more from him. He's still a 2-1 favorite though in his UFC debut against a fighter that's already had the opportunity to fight in the UFC. So I mean, it's a decently high line. I mean, you see that there's some respect on Barlow's name, right? For sure with that tag. So I wouldn't be too discouraged with that line movement going the other way. I think Barlow's the way to go still, in my opinion. And if you're getting it anything under -200 or you're getting a solid line on a TKO or knockout type prop, I think that's the way I would go. I like Barlow, and I think that he will be a problem in the future of this division. Just another fight on this card that should truly deliver for us. That this is a fight you're not going to want to miss, and you better be prepared to be staring at your TV from the moment the bell rings, because this is a fight I do believe that we're very likely to see a knockout in. Both these fighters really go for the kill. Both these fighters are lacking a little bit defensively, so there's going to be an opportunity for the other man to land that big shot. We got Brendson, Ribeiro taking on Mingyang, Zhang. Both these fighters, not the most polished fighters. They're very green. They're early on in their careers. Both fighters relatively young. Zhang, 25 years old, and Ribeiro, 27. So 25 and 27. And even though both these guys have a lot of experience, they got into the game early, both these fighters are definitely willing to strike it out. I foresee this fight being a banger. I think they're just going to kind of look to take each other's heads off, and one of these guys is going to land the mark. If you remember, Ribeiro was the underdog on that fight on Dana White's Contender Series against Bruno Lopez, who was undefeated at the time. And although, once again, we saw Ribeiro kind of throwing not the most technical strikes, kind of rangy, scrappy type of power shots. He eventually landed the mark with a nasty straight right. He was kind of countering and missed with the hook and then hit him with that right. And Ribeiro got that big knockout, got that contract. You watch his highlight reels on other fights. I mean, this is a guy that's definitely starched some dudes before. But again, it's not a guy that you're watching that's really crisp and technical. He's not like this technical kickboxer. On the other hand, I would say Zhang is a little bit more technical offensively. He's definitely showed his flaws defensively, though. You want to see a brutal knockout loss that he had. You go back to, it was a while back, but back to 2016 where John Vake, who was fighting out of New Zealand, hit him with a beautiful counter left hook that Zhang walked right into. There's also some questionable losses here on his resume. He actually was finished by Askar Mazarov, if you guys remember him. That was that fighter that kind of faked his way into the UFC with that fake record, but actually has a victory over Zhang Mingyang. So who would have knew? So both these guys are projects. Like I said, I think someone's going to land with that shot and get a knockout here. If the fight goes down to the mat, I have a feeling that Ribeiro will get the better there. I saw a couple fights where he was using some jiu-jitsu skills, pulled off a sub, and he does have some skills down there, so I'll edge him there. But I don't have a lot of faith that he's going to be able to withstand, or that he's going to... Let me rephrase that. I don't have an extreme amount of faith that he gets the job done here. I am picking him to win this fight. I'm picking him via KO. We'll talk about the line here in a second. I don't say it with an overwhelming amount of confidence because I could easily see his defensive flaws causing him to be the man that gets knocked out. But when we take a look at the betting line here, when I'm getting a plus 120 next to Ribeiro's name compared to throwing, taking a minus 150 on Zhang, I feel much more comfortable taking the dog odds. You're getting more value taking the dog here. And in fact, even if this fight was just at even odds, I still would slightly edge Ribeiro, actually, the more I dove into the tape. So I like the value there. Again, it's going to be a crazy fight, and it's going to be one of those kinds of fights, but I think we see a first-round knockout in this fight. I think we see a first-round knockout. Another thing that I do like that Ribeiro has going for him is that he's going to have about a 6-inch reach advantage, and even though I talked about how his striking is very, it's very untechnical, it has got better fight to fight, right? He's still young, and if you watch his earlier fights, it was really bad, and you see it getting a little sharper, a little bit more crisp, all right? So give me Brendson, Ribeiro to get another big-time knockout here over the UFC newcomer himself and Zhang Mingyang. How about Japanese mixed martial arts with another top upcoming prospect in the fight game? We got Rinya Nakamura. He's 8-0, undefeated. He's taking on Carlos Vera, 11-3. Carlos Vera just came off The Ultimate Fighter not too long ago. A little bit of an older fighter that's really actually just made a name for himself in the fight game. He's really kind of been an unknown fighter and just bursted on the scene on that show and took an L against Brad Katona. He's already 36 years old. Trains with Ryan Hall, with Team 50-50 and all that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But I want to actually talk more about Rinya Nakamura first. Rinya Nakamura, fighting out of Japan, but actually has a serious wrestling background, a serious wrestling pedigree, which you guys know is the best foundation a fighter can have. So that instantly puts his ceiling very high. All right. You understand that when he's fighting eventually against some of the top guys in the division, having that base, it's really going to allow him to compete with some of the best in this division. He received a gold medal in the World U23 Championships back in 2017. He's medaled in the World Cup, the Japanese National Championships, the World Cadet Championships. So he's a decorated wrestler. There's no question about that. Now, I'm not really so certain, these championships are near the level of like a division 1 champion, or over here in the States, or I'm not exactly sure where you would want to gauge that, but I know it's a level below. If we're talking about like American wrestling or a collegiate Division 1 collegiate wrestling, or you're talking about anything, of course, like the Olympics, anything like that. But if anybody wants to elaborate more on these championships in the comment section, but I know that it is a step down. But it's still a solid base. There's no question about that. So now, besides the wrestling from Rinya, how about his UFC debut, where we saw the striking on full display, fighting out of the southpaw stance, spamming with head kicks. I mean, literally just rapid firing head kicks and body kicks. I mean, this is a guy that has really showed some evolution with the striking, and it's no question why, right? Training over at American Top Team in Coconut Creek, I believe he's even put in work with Uriah Faber. I mean, he's been surrounding himself with some serious talent, serious coaching, and the work ethic that he has. This is a fighter that could really, really push it far. Now, he has a lot more to prove. There's no question about that. I mean, still really hasn't defeated anyone that respectable, right? So, I mean, he just took out Fernie Garcia, who we saw once again that Fernie Garcia, even though he's tough, he's not on the level. He's probably out of the UFC at this point. We saw the knockout victory he had there at the road to UFC championships against Toshiyama Kazama, where he got that knockout that I was talking about there and looked good on the feet, but we need to see more from him, but I do believe, and I am a believer, that he's legit. I think he's legit, and I think he'll be a step ahead of Carlos Vera throughout this fight. Now, where Rinya could potentially get himself in trouble, as I mentioned earlier, Carlos Vera training over there with Ryan Hall at 50-50 MMA. Obviously, you guys know that they're very polished with the leg submissions. Maybe Carlos Vera can get a hold of Rinya's leg and pull off some type of sub like that. He's actually shown to get a good amount of choke submissions too, rear naked chokes, guillotines and stuff like that. So if Rinya's slacking a little bit, forcing the wrestling, maybe he could slip in some type of choke. And then on the feet, I have not been that impressed with anything I've seen from Carlos Vera. I mean, the one thing I'll say, he's calm and composed and has decent movement. If Rinya got too over aggressive there, maybe Carlos Vera can counter him there. But from what I've seen from Rinya, man, he's methodical and he waits for the right moments. He doesn't just rush in, erratically. And I just haven't seen anything that would make me feel that that's going to be the case here. So yeah, I'm all over Rinya Nakamura here. He's been proven to be a fight finisher, so it's definitely realistic he gets a finish. But I'm actually going to say that Carlos Vera kind of hangs around in this fight, and we see Rinya kind of fighting in the later rounds, maybe using his wrestling to solidify rounds and kind of control this fight. I think this isn't the typical Rinya Nakamura fight. I could see Carlos Vera slowing the pace down and trying to hang in this fight. I'll take Rinya Nakamura via decision here. That's the route I'm going. And he's a big time favorite. He's up -900. He opened up as a -850. He's now a -1300. Okay. And a lot of this action is actually happening as I'm doing this video. I mean, we have movement going on as we're filming this. So he's becoming a massive favorite, a -1300 favorite. We're talking Bo Nickel numbers here. Another top prospect in the game. Give me Rinya Nakamura via decision. What are you going to do with this type of line? Like I said, I'm aiming more towards a decision. So maybe you're looking at overs or a decision type line if you get a good line on that. You're not parlaying this. You shouldn't be parlaying this. You're not going to get anything really in return. If you're looking to throw this in a parlay, I think that's a little bit of a degenerate move, right? So, I'm just sitting back and I'm seeing I'm seeing how Nakamura performs with a little step up in competition, I guess you could say, and just another fight in the octagon, and we're taking note and keeping an eye on him. Hey guys, real quick, just want to let you know, if you're looking to work with me for my official plays, do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'll give you my pricing. It's a great time to jump on. We got a lot of huge events on the horizon. You guys know we got all these big pay-per-view events going on. There's a lot of plays I'm targeting. I'm going to be bringing in some major units over the next month to 2 months. I'm telling you guys now, reach out to me and let's make some money together. Shoot me an email or DM me on Instagram or Twitter. You guys can comment below if you need any further information on that. We got the big boys throwing down here up in the heavyweight division. Marcos Rogério de Lima, the number 15th ranked heavyweight, taking on Justin Tafa. Tafa has shown to be an absolute sharpshooter on the feet. He's a really polished kickboxer. And you could say Marcos Rogério de Lima has shown flashes of being a good striker as well. But I still am going to edge Tafa there. I think Tafa will be a little bit more calm, cool, and collected, and will land the more precise, heavy shots. But this is the heavyweight division, and there's no question that Tafa can be landed on as well and potentially hurt and damage. We've seen him knocked out before, actually. If you remember that Yorgan De Castro counter shot that he got hit with and got finished. Now, that was back in 2019. That was pretty much it. Did lose a decision to Jared Vandera. That was a little alarming. But you do understand that when you're talking about Justin Tafa, this is a guy that still only has 10 professional fights. You're looking at these fights from a while ago. I mean, this is a guy that's still learning. He's still polishing his game up, right? He's 30 years old. I do like that age advantage here in this matchup, as Marcos Rogério de Lima, I believe, is now 38 years old. He's creeping up on 40. You can get away with the higher age in this division. That's true, but I do believe it's an advantage for Tafa here. I actually think that this fight is going to boil down to whether Tafa can keep this fight standing. He's so far showcased an 100% takedown defensive rate there. Okay, so he's been looking good against anyone that's tried to test him there. But if Marcos Rogério de Lima is able to get a takedown, I can see him giving Tafa some problems. I think that Tafa might have a hard time getting off his back. It might look reminiscent to when we saw his brother in there when his brother was taken down by Muhammad Usman. He's a big dude, and I could just see him kind of looking like a turtle on his back. But he's been good at keeping the fight standing. He's been good at stuffing those takedowns. We have seen Marcos Rogério de Lima actually use that exact route to get the job done before, so he will not be shy to try to attack that type of route. In fact, I think that's the route he's going to attack here. Remember, we saw that when he took on Maurice Green, just spamming the takedowns. I mean, we've seen him do this before. Now he throws a heavy leg kick, a heavy calf kick, but all in all, I just think that Tafa will be just more technical there. He'll see those things coming. He'll check the kicks and he'll counter with big heavy shots. And I think Tafa is a little bit more of a tougher fighter as well. I think that he could take damage a little bit more. So Marcos Rogério de Lima, he's a tough fighter. I don't want to paint a picture of him as being a guy that doesn't like to be hit, but there's been a couple fights where we've seen him not really like to be bullied, right? And there's a couple different ones. I mean, but even just the performance he's coming off of right now is alarming in itself. The way that Derek Lewis just ran across the cage and just beat him down like it was a high school fight, right? After school, some dude just bombards the other dude, and the other kid kind of just mentally cowers before the fight even kicks off. It's like he knows he's going to lose and he crumples up. So I'm going with Tafa here. I am taking Tafa to get the job done. I don't say it with an overwhelming amount of confidence, but when I'm taking a look at him and I'm seeing that he's as high as a plus 125 in some of these books, open up as a plus 145 as the action's been coming in on him, which is to be expected, I thought, because I think that plus 145 line was a little wide. I like the value on Tafa. I could see him rising to the occasion here. Talked about that age advantage as well. He's kind of on the rise, where De Lima right now, he's getting old. He's coming off a very questionable performance. Give me Justin Tafa. Of course, this is a fight where we could very realistically see a knockout victory. I mean, that's what Tafa does, and this is a heavyweight division. And we've been saying we're going to see a lot of finishes here, so we have to be careful with that. But I just understand that Tafa has 100% of his victories coming by way of KO. And, De Lima, he has been finished quite a bit in his losses, but interestingly enough, they've been by sub. So it's a little funky there. But I could see Tafa getting that knockout TKO, maybe a knockout early on in this fight. But even if it goes to a decision, I could see Tafa outpointing Marcos as well. All right, it might be a little ugly and it might not be as smooth as you'd like it if you have action on him, but he could outpoint him as well. I think he's due for a decision victory, right, eventually. So we'll see how that plays out. But give me Justin Tafa to get the job done. We got some ranked strawweight action here. Amanda Lemos taking on Mackenzie Dern. For those of you guys that know me good, I think you know where I'm going with this fight here. Amanda Lemos, a very smooth striker. She has some good pop in her strikes, and she's a girl that is extremely tough, as she showed in her last fight against Weili Zhang. Weili Zhang breaking like statistical records of strikes landed, but Lemos just surviving for 25 minutes. I think you have to tip your hat to the toughness of Lemos there, even though she was outgunned. Mackenzie Dern, this is a girl that, I find myself just never picking to win, right? Obviously, sometimes it's cost me, but I've been doing pretty good picking against her, especially in that last fight where she was the favorite against Andrade, and I was on Andrade, and not a lot of people were picking Andrade to win that fight. Mackenzie Dern, she didn't pull the wool over my eyes with that striking performance against Angela Hill. I know she looked good in that fight. I don't know what was going on. I'm really shocked that Angela Hill didn't show up in that fight. It was weird. You would think the recipe was perfect for Angela Hill to outstrike her, keep that fight standing. And but Mackenzie Dern didn't pull the wool over my eyes. I went right back to picking against her, and we saw what Andrade did. One of the most underrated fighters in the game. A fighter that should be a Hall of Famer, in my opinion. And Andrade, we'll see how that plays out for her. But Mackenzie Dern is sloppy on the feet. I've seen it live. I thought that, real quick, she had that victory against Tisha Torres, right? That was a fight I was there live for. I thought she lost that fight. She's sloppy on the feet, but she's an aggressive fighter. And of course, she has the BJJ in her back pocket, right? That's what this fight boils down to for me. I think Mackenzie Dern, she just needs to not play around, and she needs to try to get this fight down to the mat or try to cinch up some type of sub. If you remember what Jessica Andrade actually did, speaking of the devil, what she just did to Amanda Lemos not too long ago in that headliner, remember that? Where she had the standing arm triangle choke on Lemos there. I'm sure that would really caution a lot of you siding with Lemos, but just also take note, that was the only time that Lemos has ever been subbed out of, 17 professional fights. Okay. So she made a mistake there. She really hasn't shown to be a horrible fighter down in the mat and, or just in general. And if she could just avoid getting subbed here, I think that this is her fight all day. I think she'll be a big step ahead on the feet. Dern will try to use that aggressiveness, but I think she'll be a little clunky. I could see Lemos being smooth out there, landing some nice shots and frustrating Dern. And once Dern starts to be landed on, she gets more sloppy. Once you crack her with a couple shots, she starts tripping over her shoelaces out there. You guys know what I'm talking about. And, Mackenzie Dern recently divorced, right? And now she's dating... if you guys remember him from Dana White's Contender Series, this is Antonio Trocali, right? So they're dating. This guy's a massive dude, and he's a dangerous fighter. I mean, this guy's a fight finisher, has a little bit of John Jones leg syndrome, big upper body. But Mackenzie Dern surrounds herself with people in the fight world. You guys know that her dad, a legendary Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player, and I don't want to disrespect Mackenzie Dern. She's a very game opponent, and she can definitely get a sub in this spot here. But I like Amanda Lemos to shine with the striking, and I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to say Amanda Lemos. I'm picking too many TKOs. I'm going to edge Amanda Lemos decision, but don't be surprised if she gets a TKO. All right, 2-inch reach advantage there, and just the much more polished striker, in my opinion. Give me Amanda Lemos to get the job done. And let's take a look at the betting line real quick, where Amanda Lemos is a minus 135, opened up as a minus 220, which that was way too wide. Massive action comes in on Dern. And if you're looking to target Lemos, this is better for you. You're sitting back, you're waiting, and you're getting a better line here. And if you were looking to take Dern, obviously you should have grabbed her nice and early for you guys that are thinking Dern can use her grappling here. But I like Lemos, and I would just monitor that line. Maybe you even get it at pick-em odds, or somehow Dern becomes the favorite here. So we have massive line movement. The line's flipping. Give me Amanda Lemos to get the job done. We got a big match in regards to the middleweight division here. The number 14th ranked Anthony Hernandez, who's been on quite a win streak. And you could say the same thing for Roman Kopylov. He's been getting W after W after W. And with the win here, he will definitely have a ranked number next to his name. Roman Kopylov takes this fight on short notice, as Alex Kirov did have to pull out. He was supposed to be taking on Anthony Hernandez, but remember, these two guys were supposed to face each other a little bit ago before that fight was made. So these guys... It's no shock to them that they're facing off with each other. This isn't the first time that they've seen their names next to each other. Now, Roman Kopylov, I've been very, very high on the work that he's been putting in. He's been going out there, starching dudes, looking lightning fast on the feet with his striking. Just knocked out Josh Framd. The head kick that he landed on Claudio Ribeiro was disgusting. Finished Punalehi Seriano, Alessio De Chirico. He's really been doing his thing. He fights out of the southpaw stance. And as I mentioned, that back power kick is nasty. Doesn't telegraph it at all. You blink for a second, and the next thing you know, you got a shin cracking you in the side of your face there. So the way I look at it, anytime Roman Kopylov is in a fight in the octagon, there's a very realistic chance you're going to see a big time knockout. All right, this guy's a fight finisher, and he's a very interesting dude in the sense when you take a look at his UFC career early on when he made his debut. This was a guy who came in undefeated, or a kid who came in undefeated and really didn't look that good at all. If you remember, he took that L against a questionable fighter, if you ask me, and Carl Robertson, and was submitted and kind of controlled down on the mat. At the time, I was thinking that he was just a complete fluke and had a padded record and was just kind of a fake that got his way into the UFC. And then after that, he had a very tough match against Albert Duryov where he dug deep. It was all bloodied up. He continued to hang in that fight, and you saw him just rapidly evolving, all right, with his skill set. And, if there's any fighters out there, or if any fighters were looking to shake things up and they're going through some tough times and they're looking to just kind of get the train back on the tracks, I think that they would want to talk to a guy like Roman Kopylov, because he changed something up and he just really took his game to another level. All right. So, I could sit here and talk a lot about Anthony Hernandez too. I've been very impressed with him. He's a very well-rounded fighter, a very game fighter. I've been following his career for a long time, even before he made it to the UFC. And, this is a great match. I'm very excited to see how it plays out, but I'm going to cut to the chase here. Roman Kopylov is the dog here, and in a fight like this, the value, in my opinion, is definitely on the underdog. And in fact, I would edge Roman Kopylov slightly straight up regardless. All right, I think that the striking will be quicker. I think that he has all the potential just to keep this fight standing. So far, he's been showcasing a 92% takedown defensive rate. You remember when Albert Duryov was trying to get the fight down there, was struggling very much so. And I think he can keep the fight standing. And I think that he could land some big shots. I remember when John Young Park over in Asia, when he fought Anthony Hernandez, was kind of jabbing Hernandez up a little bit and getting the better of him there. I think Roman Kopylov can land on him. And right now, Roman Kopylov is as high as a plus 150 dog on some of these books, but he's a plus 135 currently, was just a plus 150, 145 on a lot of these books. I think the value is on Kopylov all day. I think he'll be prepared to go here. This is a fighter that knows that he's starting to work his way to getting in the title picture, right? With a couple more victories, he's working his way towards getting ranked and fighting towards the top of the division. So I think he's just training his ass off and he's fully prepared for this fight. And I think even though it's short notice, it's not too big of a deal. We'll see how he looks in the scales. Give me Roman Kopylov. Like I said, anytime he fights, that TKO, that knockout is very realistic. Anthony Hernandez, in his 2 losses, he was finished, right? He was knocked out and subbed. So, when he loses, he does get finished, but we'll see how that plays out. Kind of hard for me to say one way or another. Honestly, I could see Hernandez just being game in this fight, going back and forth, but I have Kopylov edging him out regardless. Hey guys, I just wanted to thank you all for tuning in to my channel here and checking out my videos. Just wanted to pop in here real quick and say thank you to you guys for your support. It really means a lot to me. If you could just hit that like button real quick, subscribe to the channel, and catch me on all my social media. It really means a lot to me. I'm grinding over here. Thank you guys so much. In the bantamweight division, we got the number 2 ranked bantamweight Merab Dvalishvili taking on the number 3 ranked bantamweight fighter Henry Cejudo. I got a lot to say about this fight here. I'm very, very excited to see how it plays out. You guys know that Merab's wrestling and grappling has been looking superb. What he just went out there and did to Petr Yan was really alarming for the rest of the division, man. For him to go out there and do what he did there, this guy is just relentless. He pushes the pace. He hangs on these guys. He rips them down. And I cannot wait to see how those exchanges take place when he's trying to do that to Henry Cejudo. Of course, an Olympic gold medalist, an excellent wrestler. Henry Cejudo, he had that return fight. Remember, he retired from the game, had some time off. In fact, had about a 3-year layoff coming into that Aljamain Sterling fight. I still had him winning that Sterling fight. I thought he edged that fight. It was extremely close. You have to take into consideration he was coming off a 3-year layoff. All right, so I think he will be much more prepared for this fight. Having a fight more recently, and just I know he's been training like crazy. He's super motivated. Obviously, Merab being best friends basically with Sterling, the guy that just beat him. They're teammates. It's like he's getting an opportunity at redemption here. If you saw how seriously he's taking this fight camp, he just kind of let go, if you want to say fired, let go one of his coaches, one of his best friends, just because I guess he was getting a little bit too complacent. But you could just tell Cejudo is leaving no stone unturned for this fight. So that's the thing I love about him. Another thing I love about him is that he is about as intelligent in the fight game as anyone that I've seen. I love watching his content. He's just so knowledgeable, and he's definitely going to be fully prepared for this fight. He's done his homework, and he knows what he needs to do to get a W here. So those are some things that are really going for Cejudo. Now, as far as benefits for Dvalishvili, the fact that he's 33 compared to Cejudo's 37, I think that is a big-time edge for him. He has a 4-inch reach advantage. He's the more naturally larger guy. Remember, Cejudo had the majority of his fight career taking place in the flyweight division. And I think that those are some things that could be a little bit of an issue. I'm interested to see how the striking takes place. I think Cejudo might have a little bit of cleaner striking, but at the same time, Merab doesn't allow you to play that game, in a clean manner. He's just going to be closing the distance. He's just going to be spamming you with takedowns. He's going to be moving around like crazy. And, you take a look at the numbers. Dvalishvili's been very hard to touch, only being landed on 2.41 strikes per minute, which is very low, while landing 4.46, which is more than Cejudo's 3.93. Dvalishvili is just an absolute Tasmanian devil. And I'm going to cut to the chase here. I really wanted to give you guys a dog pick here and edge Cejudo, which, as you guys can tell, I'm feeling there's more value on Cejudo with this underdog line, but I couldn't pull the trigger on picking Cejudo here. Okay, I think it's very likely he could win this fight, but I gotta go with my initial gut, which was Merab Dvalishvili just being just a little bit more youthful and energetic and just a little bit bigger, and just too much volume, too much activity, and he edges Cejudo out. Okay, he opened up as a -170. He's now -200. The action is coming in on Merab, so I'm not in agreement with that line. I think that the value is on Cejudo. He's now a +150. If it was late at night for you and you're chasing some money, you're looking for a dog, I think Cejudo is not necessarily a bad move to lock him in at dog odds. I say this fight does go to a decision. It'll be a grueling fight, but I do edge Merab Dvalishvili winning a unanimous decision here. Potentially taking all 3 rounds. Maybe Cejudo sneaks in 1 round. We'll see. Maybe Cejudo can land some nice calf kicks and try to land some damaging type blows as Merab is forcing takedowns and maybe not having as much success as he would want to. And the judge is kind of giving the damage that Cejudo's landing, giving him a round, or if things were to go his way, a round or 2. But I feel more comfortable taking Merab here, and I have him winning via decision. Now, this is going to be a lot of fun when Ian Gary finally shows face after all the drama and things that have gone on with him over the last year or so. He's taking on Geoff Neal, and you guys know that they have a little bit of a backstory. If you remember, as Ian Gary started to open up with the cringeness that he has over the past couple of years, he was wearing a t-shirt of Geoff Neal's mugshot. I believe it was like a DUI or something. Just weird. I don't know. Maybe, Ian Gary, he thinks that he's like slick, and he thinks he's doing something that was kind of like cool and funny, when really it was just kind of cringe and kind of dorky. And that's kind of the story of who he is as a fighter, and who he is as a person, in my opinion. Just a little corny. He's a corny dude, and never really had like an alpha male figure to teach him the ropes, right? And that's why you see him making all these mistakes that he's making. I really didn't like what he said about Neal Magny, how he tried to put some type of spin on Neal Magny as him being, a child abuser. I really didn't like that. Like he was beating his kid or something, when it was completely taken out of context. Ian Gary, in my opinion, is probably the type of guy that has a kid out in public and his kid's throwing food in his face, telling him to shut up. And he probably believes like you can't discipline your kid too much. You just got to kind of tell him, don't do that, buddy. Don't do that. You guys know what I'm talking about. He's one of those types of guys, and to each his own, if that's what you do in your own household. But don't you go out there demonizing a guy like Neal Magny, who's been really nothing but a class act in the sport. All right. And just to try to paint a picture of him like that. And Neal Magny dealt with it in such a mature way, I guess you would say, because I would have handled that completely different. And props to Magny for doing what he did and just kind of like letting that fly. But if that was me and a lot of other fighters, I think that would have been handled very differently behind the scenes. So I got to just get that out there, because anytime there's an Ian Gary fight, I'm going to kind of go off on him a little bit. I can't really say what I really want to say on here. I think that would have to be on another platform for me really to say how I feel about him as a dude. Do I need to go on about his whole situation with the old lady and all that? Geoff Neal here. Geoff Neal is a fight finisher. He has serious power in his hands. 60% of his victories have come by way of KO. All right. This is going to be a striking affair. Ian Gary, who is the superior fighter, is more than willing to exchange in the feet. That's what he likes to do. He's a phenomenal striker. And Geoff Neal's going to have opportunities to try to land a counter shot, to try to land that big shot with his hands and to get a knockout. Okay. That's what Geoff Neal needs to do. If he doesn't land that knockout blow, I have a very hard time seeing Geoff Neal winning this fight in any other manner. Ian Gary puts out crazy volume on the feet. He's very diverse with his striking. He's very rangy as well. Even though he'll actually be at a 1-inch reach disadvantage, but he's a fighter that is about 4.5 inches taller, and he has that leg reach. And it only says he has a 1-inch leg reach here, but this doesn't really add up. And just understand that Ian Gary will have that range advantage. He 100% will, and he has great footwork, and he knows how to use that. Okay, we've seen him doing that recently. He's been landing 6.67 strikes per minute. That's what he's been averaging in the UFC. He's very active. I think he's going to be picking Geoff Neal apart from the outside. Geoff Neal is much easier to be hit than Ian Gary is to be hit. Geoff Neal being landed on at 5.6 strikes per minute, which is a high number. Ian Gary, very, very hard to touch at 3.58. And I think that this fight's going to play out just like that. I think Ian Gary is going to frustrate Geoff Neal. Geoff Neal is not going to find that big strike, and Ian Gary's going to cruise his way to a unanimous decision. He's going to win every round, and he's going to outpoint Geoff Neal. I'll be sitting there rooting on Geoff Neal to land that big strike. I just don't think it's going to happen. And I think that Ian Gary is actually a very legitimate fighter in this division. I really believe that. As much as I don't like him, his frame, his athleticism, and his polished striking, his well-roundedness is serious. And he's been training with some of the best of them. He's bounced around gyms. You guys know there's been some drama and whatnot. He's actually been getting work right now with Charles Oliveira, training over at Shootbox. I mean, he's bounced around at some big gyms for a while now, and you see everything that he's been learning play out in his fights. He's a legit fighter, man. All right, so that'll be a fun one. And Ian Gary, a minus 250 favorite. He was opened up as a minus 230. I actually still don't even have a problem with that line. Okay, I think that really even like a minus 275 and down type of money line, if you are looking for a parlay leg, I think that Gary's going to handle business here. I feel pretty strongly about that. So, but I do think he wins a decision, unanimous decision. So it's crazy to think that Robert Whittaker's loss to Dricus du Plessis was already 7 months ago. I feel like that fight just took place. Obviously, that was one of the worst performances and worst losses that Robert Whittaker was ever handed in his career. He's taking on Paulo Costa here. Paulo Costa, a fighter that really doesn't stay that active, but always is a big name in the game just based on his personality. And when he does show up to fight, he's an entertaining fighter. He really has underrated boxing. He has underrated power. And if you think that Costa is just more of like a gimmick and whatnot, if you kind of sleep on him, this guy could really damage you, man. Wasn't able to get Luke Rockhold out of there, but definitely showed once again that he's a very tough fighter. And I don't think that Paulo Costa actually gets the credit he deserves as far as his toughness and how he's willing to go to a war. I think it has something to do with that pretty boy style that he has, where people kind of maybe don't give him that respect, I would say. But just understand that he's a tough dude and he's willing to go to war. And if he lands a big shot on you, he could put you out. Now, Robert Whittaker's coming off a fight where he was just finished. He's 33 years old, which isn't necessarily that old for the fight game, right? For some fighters, they're going into their prime right now. I don't think that's the case with Robert Whittaker, though. This is a guy that now has 31 professional fights. I think that he's on the decline, just with the mileage that he's had on his body. And so that's a little alarming to me. I think that Paulo is a much more a fresher fighter, even though their age is very similar. Paulo only having, he has so much less wear and tear on him. Only 16 pro fights. He's not that active, like I said. So he's just, he has a lot of time off in between fights. So those are things that I kind of like for Paulo Costa here. But check this out. So depending on how you guys are looking at that loss that he just took to Dricus, we now know that Dricus is the absolute truth, right? But some of you guys are looking at the damage that Robert Whittaker took in that fight, and you're a little wary that he's going to be able to withstand the power of Paulo Costa as they go to war. Maybe he's starting to break down. I kind of actually take that last fight as a slight edge for Robert Whittaker, believe it or not. I think that he needed something like that to really motivate him. He's been in the fight game for a long time, and he might have been a little complacent going into that fight. There were some rumors of that. He might have thought that he was just a superior fighter and was just kind of going through the motions with his training. I think for this fight here, He wants to get back in the win column for sure, and I think that he is really, really sharpening up his skill set, preparing for war. And if you guys know, I mean, I don't need to preach about Robert Whittaker. I mean, he's an absolute complete fighter. Okay, this guy could do it all. He has very underrated wrestling and grappling. He's a very dangerous striker. And, just some fight math that kind of stood out to me when you break down the tape on Whittaker versus Marvin Vettori compared to the performance that Paulo Costa had against Marvin Vettori in their fight. I saw some things where I kind of feel that Robert Whittaker should have an edge on the feet there, as long as he's not hurt and damaged. I could see him being a step ahead. And, he has, I don't want to say Whittaker has awkward striking. It kind of is, you know what I mean? It's a little bit unorthodox, and he makes it work, and he's diverse with his striking. And I think he'll be a step ahead of Paulo here in this big fight. I think Whittaker bounces back into the win column. Costa has been a very durable fighter throughout his career, besides just that one fight against Izzy, where I don't know what went on in that fight, but he's been pretty damn durable, but does take a lot of damage, absorbing 6.38 strikes per minute. He does get landed on. I think Whittaker will be landing on him. But as you see, Paulo landing 6.5 strikes per minute. He's a very aggressive fighter, but I think that Whittaker can use his footwork and kind of be the matador out there to the bull. I think he'll just be a little bit more fluid with his movement and just a little bit of a step ahead, and just maybe mixes things up a little better too. Maybe changes levels. And I was close to picking Paulo Costa here, but the more I was breaking down the tape and just seeing that Whittaker's motivated for this fight, it's hard for me not to side with Whittaker, because he shows to be this more superior fighter. You just, depending on how you're looking at his trajectory with the damage he's taken recently, his age and all that, but you guys know where I stand. I think that he is ready to go for this fight. So he opened up as a minus 210 on my bookie. He's now minus 230. So action coming in on him slightly, which is kind of a good thing if you're eyeing him and you got your bet in. People are throwing action on Whittaker, so things are looking good. For any details that are coming out, a lot of times the line movement has merit to it. You got to understand that, of course, right? I mean, when you see action coming in, there's reasons why that action is coming in. So what Whittaker's checking boxes, whatever he's doing, he's looking like he's ready to go for this fight, and that's what I've been seeing as well. So give me Robert Whittaker to win a decision. I'm going to say that this is a little bit of a vintage Paulo Costa fight where they really go to war. It's going to be another entertaining fight, but Whittaker's going to be a step ahead. I think that both these guys make it to that final bell, and Whittaker wins maybe a split decision. How about that? Maybe a split decision for Robert Whittaker. Actually, maybe Costa keeps this fight close enough. All right. So as far as the betting line goes, I actually do believe that the value is on Costa, especially if you're catching a plus 180 line like I've seen out there. It's plus 179 right now in Jazz Sports. It's plus 185 on Bet Online. All right. So I mean, there's some real juice there if you're looking for some dog value on Paulo Costa, and he could win this fight. All right, this is a fight that we don't know exactly how this is going to play out. Value on Paulo Costa. Give me Robert Whittaker to win a split decision. Hey guys, real quick, if you're looking to sign up to a new sports book and get a new bonus in your account, reach out to me. If you guys want to sign up to bovada.lv, I'll send you over my referral link. You'll get an added deposit bonus, and I will also give you a month free of picks. Okay, that's a $100 value for my picks as well. So reach out to me if you're interested. I'll give you that information on how to sign up through my referral link. It's all very easy. It's a great site. Is bovada.lv. I think it's the most aesthetically pleasing sportsbook out there. The lines are great, especially if you target underdog bets. Bovada is about as good as it gets as far as the value goes on underdog plays. If you like those kind of bets, reach out to me and I'll send that over to you. Here we go. We got the main event. The featherweight championship of the world is on the line. Alexander Volkanovski, the greatest featherweight to have ever done it. All right. I mean, if you want to argue with me, comment below. But it's not Jose Aldo. It's not Max Holloway. It's not Conor McGregor. It's Alexander Volkanovski. All right. So do understand that first and foremost, and don't be so harsh on Volkanovski for taking that L against Islam Makhachev as he took that fight on short notice. I mean, it was a stud move, and he got caught. All right. So now he's taking on Ilia Topuria, who, without a doubt, in my mind, is is the guy that's gunning for his belt. I mean, this is the toughest challenge in the division. Okay, Ilia Topuria, he's kind of like he's the new breed of the division, man. This is like a new generational type of fighter. I think he's going to be an absolute star for some time to come. He's only 27 years old. He's a complete fighter. His striking is beautiful to watch. He's very, very technically sound, defensively and offensively. He could grapple. He could do it all. We've been watching him for a while, right? We've been keeping an eye on him for some time, right? He's been on our radar, and he's made it all the way to the top of the mountain, and he's trying to become the champion right now. Alexander Volkanovski is going to have a 2.5-inch reach advantage here. As you know, he has that freakish reach for his frame. Topuria is an inch taller. I think these guys are going to strike it out. I think we're going to see a significant amount of striking in this fight. And Volkanovski, obviously a phenomenal striker. He uses his range so good. I mean, he manages his distance so good with his footwork and that reach advantage. And he's a very underrated striker, or maybe not underrated. Everyone knows how good he is, but I would say he's actually somewhat underrated. And if you really, really break down his striking, I mean, it's really, really solid. Ilia Topuria, to me, right now, I feel his striking is looking better than what I see from Volkanovski on tape and their recent fights. Topuria is lightning fast. His boxing is just a little bit more crisp to me. It's a little bit more tight. And I think Topuria is going to find the mark. I think he's going to land some shots on Volkanovski here. I just think that these fighters are in two different times in their career. I mean, there's no argument. I mean, Volkanovski, now 35 years old, coming off a head kick knockout that just happened recently, right? I mean, he just took that damaging shot back in October. We're talking about 4 months ago or so against Islam. He's had some time to rest up, but that wasn't that long ago. In the meantime, Ilia Topuria, still undefeated, went out there and butchered Josh Emmett, who then Emmett comes back and shows that he's still as dangerous as ever. I mean, that's a quality victory. Just dismantled Bryce Mitchell, knocked out Jai Herbert, Ryan Hall, Damon Jackson. He's been knocking these dudes out. He finds the mark. He sets things up with his hands, and he hurts these guys. And I think that he's going to bloody Volkanovski up. I think you're going to see, it's going to kind of look like one of those types of battles that you see when you're watching like National Geographic, where you see the young animal. Let's say it's the younger bear or the younger lion, or trying to think of some animals that duke it out like that. You could even go to like the rams, as them two men face off, and there's an alpha male that's been running a territory for some time, and then you see there's a changing of the guard, and you see that alpha looks a little bit older than he looked in the past. You can kind of tell he's an aging animal. I think you're going to see that from Volkanovski. I think he's going to look a little bit more aged here, and you're going to see just a very crisp and young, fresh beast of a fighter in Topuria, and Topuria is going to be a step ahead of Volkanovski in this fight. I think that Ilia Topuria is going to become the new featherweight champion of the world. And like I said, at only 27 years old, I think he's going to run this division for some time. He has really been breaking out as a star. As I said, he already has over 2 million followers in IG. I mean, he's really becoming a household name. Now, if Topuria gets the victory, does Volkanovski get an immediate rematch? I would be interested to see how that plays out. I would say he potentially does, even though he'll be coming off 2 losses back to back there. He's a guy that he's been the champion for so long in this division. If any champion is deserving of getting an immediate rematch, you look at the numbers, you got to say Volkanovski is deserving of a rematch. So we could be seeing these guys face off back to back. Because other than that, I don't want to say the featherweight division is extremely shallow, but you're seeing a lot of the same names in this division right now. There's no one that's really sticking out to me to potentially make a run at the title. And Movsar Evloev is a guy that's been winning a lot of fights, but it's not coming off the most exciting victory in his last one there. And you're seeing a lot of these similar names, right? Max Holloway, Yair Rodriguez, Josh Emmett, Calvin Kattar, Giga Chikazi. He's had a return victory. Maybe he can start to stir some things up. Mitchell just got devastatingly finished. Barbosa is a tough dude, but he's old. So, I mean, we'll see what's next in the division there, but I think Ilia Topuria will be the face of this division moving forward. He opened up as a +140 underdog on my bookie back in November. It's been a long time, but Even in January here, he's been a plus 115 dog. Moving towards the beginning of February, he was a plus 110, and he is now a minus a 105. Well, not really a favorite. I guess you would say and we actually had some, well, that's on my bookie, excuse me. So he's a slight underdog. Volkanovski's a minus 115. It's essentially pick 'em odds. And I'm looking at other books and it's flipped the other way. On Bovada, Topuria's a minus 115 compared to Volkanovski's. See, and then the action's changing by the minute. All right, so let's just simplify this. It's pick 'em odds, right? I mean, it is. It's pick 'em odds on this fight. You pick your poison. Who do you like? Do you love back in the veteran, the greatest featherweight champion of all time who's hungry to get back in the win column? Or do you like the young, hungry lion in Topuria? I was back and forth on this as I was breaking on tape a week ago or so, and I settled in for sure on the Topuria pick right there. So I wouldn't even be surprised if Topuria gets him out of there, but not banking on that. 25 minutes of fight time, and Topuria will land some big shots, and Volkanovski's coming off that devastating knockout loss, but over time he's shown to be very durable, so it's hard to really bank on that. But I think Topuria will be the new champion and new. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up UFC 298. I'm very excited for this fight card. I hope you guys all have an amazing time watching the fights, and I hope you guys make a bunch of money on this fight card and bring in a bunch of units. All right, I want to wish you guys all a great event. Besides that, got to leave you guys with some closing thoughts. As you guys know, I like to take this time to talk about something other than just fights, because I just appreciate being able to have people listen to my thoughts at times. If I could help someone out there, it means a lot to me. I kind of like that. So what I would say for our closing thoughts here, let me think of something good. You know what I would like to say? Sometimes I think about this. Growing up, I was always I'll be quite honest, and I hope I don't rub you guys the wrong way, but I was always a very cocky and confident type of guy. Okay. To the point where people would kind of joke about it. When I was growing up, I thought I was going to be a quarterback in the NFL. I would tell everybody that from the moment I was in elementary school. It was kind of like a joke. People always would say, oh, call me future quarterback, just because I would always be telling people that I'm going to be the GOAT, the best quarterback of all time. When I was starting to get an MMA, I thought I was going to become a UFC champion. Reality kind of hit me there, as that's a whole other story. But, training for years, and obviously it just became more of a hobby. But I've always had that mindset. And I took that into everything that I did, and just in general in life. And you know what? It's okay to have reality checks given to you at times, but I personally feel that some of you guys need that. Don't ever be down on yourself. Don't have negative thoughts of yourself. You should be walking around thinking you are the best, all right? Sometimes when you have that energy, other people will try to dim your light. They don't like that, all right? It's kind of like an innate thing. When someone's very cocky, it can be annoying too. I'm not saying to be annoying with it, but people will kind of try to dim your light because they don't like that. And it's like an instinctual thing for them to knock you down, because it kind of like innately gives them more resources, right? They don't want you confident around the other girls. They don't want you confident in business, taking up resources or making more money than them. They feel it's like an instinctual thing. So, there's nothing wrong with having that little swag to you and that confidence in you. I bet you it will make you guys feel better. Try it out. Feel confident in yourself. It will make you more productive. It'll make you more likely to do things that you wouldn't have done otherwise. And don't let other people around you try to dim that light on you and try to make you act differently and say little things that kind of make you second guess yourself. All right, all you guys out there, if any of you guys are struggling with confidence, understand, take a look in the mirror. There's nobody better than you, right? I mean, think about that in regards to you and how you feel about who's the best person on planet Earth. You better feel it's you yourself, and in reality it is, right? And if you ask any person who the coolest person on this earth is, who's the slickest, who's the most intelligent, you should be saying it's you, because in your perspective it is you. That's a fact. That's how it should be. It's you. So have that type of energy and keep that with you day to day. You're gonna have moments or you're going to feel a little bit less confident. You're going to have some things happen that's going to knock you down. You're going to start second guessing yourself. You might have, it's complicated, but you could be hungover. You could have had a little L that you took, right? If you're a fighter, you take an L and you kind of have this little, the second guessing of yourself. If you guys have ever had that feeling, you feel a little weird and you kind of start questioning yourself. You bulldoze through that, and then you're gonna have those moments. You're gonna have your confidence come back. Just keep pushing forward and keep thinking you're the best. All right, that's what I'll leave you with today. And you guys know we'll always have a little closing thought at the end of these episodes. All right, guys. So big things are coming. Like I said, should be interviewing Joe Pyfer's dad. Just some content coming for you guys. I'm gonna start doing some more fighter interviews. I'm working on a lot of different content. As you guys saw, I did that little video I posted here on the channel about Joe Pyfer. You're gonna get a lot of random type videos like that of me just talking about what's going on in the MMA world, and I'm going to be sharpening up some things with the editing and the background and all that, so you're going to see a lot more of that type of stuff. So content will be coming your way all week. All right, guys, especially for these big cards like this card here. All right, much love to you. Hit that like button, subscribe, catch me on all my social media. Signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.